Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And I'm back with a brand new episode of What If Naruto Never Stop Evolving and Leveling Up. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also guys, don't forget to go ahead and check out the brand new episodes over the other channels. Yes, if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, yes, that's correct. I indeed have 3 more channels which I post what if on every single day for you guys to enjoy. All the links will be down in the description, so go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And don't forget to turn on the bell notification to see when I post, because I do post a hell of a lot. So without further ado or wasting any more time, how about we begin this now guys? So the last part we left off, the man that killed Naruto within the forest after he returned back to the land of the living introduced himself as he told Naruto that what happened to him wasn't death. He made a vague statement that Naruto could not die, as Naruto wasn't paying much attention to that though. What he was paying attention to was the man telling him that he was his father. Confusion was crossing Naruto's mind as he didn't understand. Taking off his disguises, the man showed his white hair. He seemed to be in his late or perhaps early 50s. As he stood there calm, he said that his name was Zoldyck Osusuke, and he said that Naruto wasn't from this planet. He was a bit iffy about the details of how this was even possible, but he said that he was Naruto's father. He's been looking for him for a long time now, and other Osusukes would come after him because he was responsible for wiping out around 90% of the Osusukes in the past. Naruto was heavily confused by that, not quite understanding any of this. Once the man was gone, Naruto was able to speak to the Nine Tails, asking the great beast if he was human. The beast was hesitant at first, but it doubted that Naruto was fully human. As Naruto started to go in a deep depression, realizing that this wasn't even his home. However, the Nine Tails was able to snap him out of it, telling him that greater threats were coming, and if he didn't want everyone to die, he had to be prepared to fight them. Naruto did not trust Zoldyck. His information was shoddy at best, with the lack of detail that came with it, and Naruto did not like that. No, he did not one bit, as he was going to find out, but he also needed to become stronger, as strong as he possibly can, to make sure that any threat that shows themselves would not stand a chance against him. When the time came Naruto participated in the preliminaries, as he went up against Kiba, Kunai was confident enough to believe that Naruto would lose until Naruto grabbed both Kiba and Orochimaru out of their spinning rotation like it was nothing, knocking the both of them out. Many were shocked and surprised by that, not expecting that one bit from Naruto. As they knew him back in the academy, the only thing that he did worth noting in the end was defeating Sasuke in that match. However, they never expect him to be this powerful, not at all. Hiruzen had a conversation with Naruto afterwards, as Naruto lied to the man, wanting to keep this to himself for the time being. Anko came to speak to him as well, as Naruto had to lie to her as well. He didn't know everything and he wanted to know everything before making a rush judgment that would set everything into chaos, knowing that there were beings from other planets that were coming to claim his life. As he knew that Anko wouldn't allow that to happen, she would fight at his side. and he didn't want her to get hurt. He didn't want anyone to get hurt, so he had to know. He had to find out everything before he made a move, so that is what he did. During the break, Naruto went to train. As he met Jiraiya of the Sannin, a little bit of back and front which ended with Jiraiya taking Naruto on as a pupil, as he wanted Naruto to sign the Toad Summoning contract, which led to Naruto being requested by Gamabunta to last the entire day on his back. As Gamabunta was surprised by Naruto's resilience, which was a lot more surprising than he originally thought. In the end, Naruto came out on top, as he became a Toad Summoner as well. With that said and done, they had to move on to other training methods, which they did. As they started to train for the rest of the month, Jiraiya was more than shocked by Naruto and just what the kid could do. The more he learned, the more impressed that he got. When the time finally came, they were all there, except for Sasuke. Last minute work with Kakashi, as Naruto was there to face off against his opponent. Anko was cheering for Naruto as she bet a lot of money on him. Most would think that she was an idiot given that he was going up against the prodigy of the Hyuga clan, but Anko had no doubt in her mind that Naruto had this. Yes, there was no doubt in her mind. The battle was a bit emotional with Neji revealing his greatest shame as he ripped off his headband. As both him and Naruto clashed, Naruto's power was far greater than Neji, his speed, his strength, everything. And the moment Neji hit Naruto with his 8 tetragram Naruto body was able to cover his chakra points, not allowing any chakra to pass a certain area that would seal off his points, shocking Neji. With that out of the way, Naruto demolished him and showed him that there was nothing such as fate. Everyone made their own fate as Neji lost. However, something good came out in the end though, as Hayashi went to have a conversation with him to make sure he knew the true reason behind why his father did what he did. When Sasuke finally arrived as he made his way down there, it ended up kicking off something rather greater than before. It was the attack on the village. Zoldyck was there as he was watching. His Byakugan was different as it was much more advanced. Zoldyck proceeded to take a step further by killing Uncle Midarashi, using the blade of one of the enemies to make it seem like she was struck down. He stabbed it right through her heart. Naruto was not paying attention, otherwise he would have sent Zoldyck, because he lost all composure. He lost his mind as he saw Uncle's corpse on the ground. He lost everything in rage. However, the most shocking thing was the cell. The bars simply shattered. Yes, Kurama was shocked beyond his wildest belief, as the bars simply shattered away like they were glass. So yeah guys, basically as we left off, you guys can switch across the playset of yourself. So we jump right into this brand new episode. Let us begin now guys. Kurama extended one of his tail towards where the bars once was. As there was nothing there, he thought it was some kind of illusion, some kind of trick. However, right in front of his eyes, the bars shattered like glass. Slowly stepping out, he could immediately tell something was wrong. He was stuck. He looked around in confusion when chakra started to gather, not his, as the two of them formed into two people. Kurama's eyes widened when he noticed the people that resided in front of him. He was shocked. Blinking her eyes, Kushina Uzumaki, mother of Naruto, looked around. Something was wrong, she could immediately tell. Kushina? She turned. Minato, she said. Standing there was the fourth Hokage, the residue of their chakra that they seal within Naruto in case of emergency. Minato's eyes widened as he looked towards the Great Fox, immediately preparing to fight. But Kurama wasn't interested in that. As he looked up when he heard a sound, the darkness that represented the sky shattered like glass. The whole place was breaking apart. What is going on? Kushina shouted. Minato had no answers for her as Kurama's eyes then widened, remembering The piece of Zabuza blade that broke off in Naruto. That little teeny part that was merely a fragment. His body was able to evolve due to the material allowing him to control his blood. Just like how the blade feasts on blood to recover itself, giving him a boost in his evolution. The beast opened his mouth to say something, but it was too late. The scream of Minato and Kushina could be heard as all of them were sucked in, along with the collapsing Mindscape. Kurama tried to fight it, but not even he was powerful enough. However, it wasn't just them that was sucked away. It was the Reaper Seal. This evolution, this leveling up of Naruto came to him by a need. It always helped him whenever he needed to do something. Whenever he needed more strength, whenever he needed more speed. Whenever he needed to see further, whenever he needed to know who was watching him. His body evolved to do such thing. And right now, the person that Naruto cared about the most in this world was lying on the ground dead in front of him. And Naruto refused to accept this. And it triggered his evolution. It needed something to trigger that evolution. And, as luck might have it, the Reaper Death Seal, a craft that dabbled with the Shinigami Death itself, was currently situated in the boy's stomach. The seal shattered like glass, unable to properly handle the true makeup of what Naruto was. Now, all can see why Zoldyck was scoffing when Naruto said that he killed him. Unfortunately though, the Ninetales and Minato and Kushina chakra was swept up inside of it as well. In the outside world, everything came to a stop. Every movement, every single battle. Even Gaara, Sasuke, they all froze. Orochimaru froze. Hiruzen froze. Everyone turned their gaze. It wasn't just there. Beyond Konoha, within the Land of Fire, everyone in the Land of Fire also froze as they felt it. Every citizen of the Land of Fire felt it, and reaching beyond as well. At the moment, Naruto was on his knees. Having fell to his knees when he saw Anko. There was no life there, nothing at all. Memories flashed through his mind. The first time when she came to cook for him, he was too modest to tell her how horrible it was. However, as their friendship developed into something akin to them being family, it changed, and they joke about stuff like that. He has come to know a lot of people, his teammates, his sensei. However, Anko was the closest to him out of everyone else. And to see her lying there, Naruto lost his goddamn mind. Hovering above, watching with his Byakugan was none other than Zoldyck. He smiled as a dark essence started to leave Naruto. It started to affect the environment and the people around as well. Chilling sensations went through many of their spines. 3 sound shinobis, seeing the one that was causing this, decided to do something about it. Throwing 2 kunais each. The weapons embedded themselves within Naruto. 2 in his back, 2 in his stomach, and 2 right in his head. Something like that perhaps should have taken him out, but he did not move as a black ooze. This wasn't any normal ooze. The kunai started to rust before they started to break apart. It was almost like the metal was degrading, which it was. As the degradation started to become faster and faster and faster, until there was nothing there. No blood came from Naruto's wounds. His body seemed to be hollow and empty. His shirt exploded off of him. Strange markings started to embed themselves within his skin, almost like they were literally gouging out his flesh. But there was no blood, no pain, as he did not make a sound. It was his face next. His face started to peel. His skin started to melt off. Everyone stood there with a shocked look on their face. Even Kakashi could not step too close. The sensation was overwhelming. Standing where he was able to move confidently, but his body was warning him not to get too close. He watches Naruto's flesh off his face peeled off, his skin falling and melting away into nothingness. As Naruto rose to his feet, all that was left was a skull. Yes, a fleshless, skinless skull. Where his head once was, no hair, nothing else, just a skull. For the first time since Naruto evolution, he didn't seem to be in full control. No, he was not. As the flesh off his hands started to burn off as well, he started to change. His bony fingers extending. By all viewing eyes, he should be dead right now, but yet, there he stood. A black cloak gathering out of the ooze around him, wrapping around his frame. Beyond the depths of the elemental nation, in a place that one would not want to even see or reside, a being was immediately aware of what was going on. This was death itself. The Shinigami tied to this world, those that could summon it. However, there was a price. It took their life. Even this being was confused until it recognized what it sensed. Evolution, it said. Meanwhile, Zoldyck was delighted. This had worked far better than what he expected. Never had evolution evolved so much that it took aspects of death. He never took into account that power inside of him would be proved to be beneficial. But now, Zoldyck smiled as he stood where he was, watching the whole facade play down there. As Naruto stepped forward, the first step that he took, thousands of screams could be heard. Those were not from the people amongst the elemental nation. You see, Naruto has tapped into something very dark, evolving into a being that could theoretically transcend death itself in order to bring Anko back. It was a desire. It was a need. That is how the evolution worked. Whatever he desired, whatever he needed, Naruto was created, such as Zoldyck said. And this evolution was the most powerfulest thing that ever walked the entire universe. The mere fact that he was defeated was a testimony to the Osutskis. However, there were things that Zoldyck was keeping away, things that Zoldyck did not tell Naruto. So the whole story was still yet to be told. However, right now, Naruto has become a real problem. He held his hand out, his bony fingers, as his darkness started to manipulate, carve through the very essence of this world itself. Space and time ripping open, as space and time bend and twist and solidified into something decrepit and powerful. A weapon. It was a sight that belongs to a Reaper. Reapers are different from death itself. Reapers are simply beings that guide the soul to the afterlife within the elemental nation. And death was like their boss. And right now Naruto was balancing between a Reaper and death itself, and a human as well. The problem was, this evolution was something that he's never taken on before, not even in his previous life. So not even Zoldyck knew what was going to happen. After all, before, evolution did not care enough to go this far for anyone. With that, he simply watched. It was the 3 sound ninjas that tried to wound him. They were the first to receive it. He stepped forward, realizing that they were outmatched. Their first thought was to run away, and that is what they did. The problem was, they could not. Looking down the darkness at their feet, the darkness proved to be something that was alive in on itself. It gripped their ankles. The next moment, Naruto fell through nothingness as he emerged out of the darkness, emerging out of the shadow like death itself. He raised his sight before he swiped, splitting their throats open. Blood gushed out, however, he opened his maw and started to inhale. Their very essence and soul was sucked out of them, and Naruto swallowed it whole. Their bodies crumbled down to the ground, blood still spilling out of their soulless form. He then turned and released a cackle. It sounded like laughter and a roar at the same time. Somehow, despite his angered, vengeful, violent state, Naruto could still see friend from foe. Given that the next thing he did solidified that the enemy would never win. The moment Baki had felt this and found out that they were tricked, he gave the order for the sand to retreat. Majority of the sand ninjas had already fled. Unfortunately for those who were left behind, it was the shadows. It's said to be a reflection of one's soul. In some aspects, the cackle that Naruto released drew everyone's shadow towards them. Immediately, all of the Konoha ninjas fell to a knee. However, for these sound ninjas and the few sand ninjas that were remain, their shadows were separated from them. As Naruto cackled, draw the shadows. The Konoha ninjas' shadows expanded as they felt tired and exhausted. Hiruzen within the dome collapsed down to his knees. Orochimaru fall in the dome quickly, dissipating, as the sound ninjas could not keep it up. That was when the Anvus collapsed as well. No one could move. It was all the people within the radius. Gaara, who was without of said radius, was currently unaffected by this, and so was Sasuke. However, the cackle started to affect Gaara badly. The presence that was released scared him and pushed his mind back, as it chilled to his very bones. And when Gaara was afraid, he tended to give up control, because he feel like he could not best whatever he was going up against. So he gave up all control in that moment, as the tail beast started to break free. However, for the people within the village, it was pure chaos. Kakashi, who was on one knee, was terrified, being the closest to Naruto as he watched his shadow expanded. The shadows linked together and created a pitch black underground. Nothing. There was no ground there, and yet they were still standing. For those that Naruto steal their shadows away, their bodies were getting colder and colder. Something was wrong. It was like an infection. It was not plain out killing them, but it was subduing them. Naruto then raised his sight and drove it within his own chest, ripping his chest apart. However, out of that wound that was created, blood. Yes, blood was now spilling. And the moment said blood made contact with the shadows, it was like some strange ritual sacrifice. The sounds that could be heard were demonic, terrifying. It sounds like the depths of the underworld itself was being controlled by Naruto. His blood started to form, creating red and black beneath them, as the sound ninjas and the remaining sand ninjas screamed in terrifying fear as hands started to approach. Yes, hands. Hands made from the blood and the shadows started to grip them. It started to pull them down, pulling them down into the shadow, which seemed to have no end and no beginning. Strangely enough, the only one that wasn't affected by this was Orochimaru. The Sannin was weakened, but not enough for him not to run. Screw the bodyguards, screw his people. Orochimaru would not die here, as his intention was to flee. However, the moment he reached, Orochimaru came to a stop. He could not move any further. That is when he realized, despite him not being affected by the strange hands, he didn't have a shadow. The Sannin could not move beyond this point. Orochimaru cursed as he couldn't escape. The hands pulled the sound and sand ninjas down into the depths of the shadows. Their final scream was the last thing that could be heard before souls. Souls that should not be seen by humans was currently being seen. Kakashi saw them, Sakura and the others, confused as they saw them. In that moment, the One Tail rose up. Jiraiya, who was there, unable to move on the roof, cursed to himself as he didn't possess the necessary strength to take on the One Tail at the moment. Naruto opened his maw so wide that it seemed to dislocate as the souls flood into his mouth. While all of this was going on, Anko, her corpse was covered by the hands, but they did not pull her down, they simply covered and protected her. The driving will to keep his people safe, to keep the one that he loved the most safe, was protecting Anko. As for Orochimaru, for the first time in his life, Orochimaru was truly terrified as Naruto crawled out of the shadow that was in front of him. The one that Orochimaru believed to be his, that was not moving. The Sannin took a step back, cold sweat running down his face. Hiruzen tried to call out to Naruto to stop him, to say something, as his people were unable to do much, and the One Tails was going to bring havoc and destruction on the village. The beast, wanting to enjoy its time out, was going to cause the most damage that it could. It started to gather one of its most powerful technique, scaring the living crap out of everyone, realizing that they would not be able to dodge this. Many that know him shouted out to Naruto to try to snap him out of this, because at the state that they were in, they could not do anything. They could not protect their home. Jiraiya rolled off the building, using his strength to move as he crashed down, shouting out to the kid, but Naruto was in the process of causing Orochimaru pain beyond his wildest imagination. The Sannin knew something was strange about this kid since he saw him in the forest. He did not hesitate to regurgitate his blade from his mouth. Orochimaru's swipe decapitated Naruto. However, his head did not fall. His head simply suspended itself in mid-air. The Sannin slash splitting Naruto in half before running through handstand and releasing a powerful wing technique. It blew Naruto away, but his body never dropped. It simply returned back to normal. The next moment, Orochimaru felt something as he looked down. Orochimaru was unable to see the transition between the movement that Naruto made. However, Naruto's hand was currently in his chest. Orochimaru started to scream. A violent, horrendous, breaking scream. The citizens of Konoha grimaced as a scream sounded like it was gritting at their soul. Black markings started to spread from the inside out of the Sannin. Meanwhile, Sasuke dropped down to his knees, backing away from the great beast. Luckily, the siblings were also safe as well. Sasuke gripped his neck as something was wrong. In that moment, the curse mark started to activate, and Orochimaru's soul fragments started to emerge, something that shouldn't be possible at the moment. It too started to scream. Every single essence of the Sannin was screaming because Naruto wasn't just killing him, Naruto was destroying his soul. There could be no regeneration, no return, nothing. Orochimaru would not go to heaven or hell. His essence would simply be gone. There would be nothing left for him. As Naruto did not stop until the Sannin body erupted. It was like an explosion, but there wasn't much backfire after that. As Naruto stood there, that is when the One Tail decided to launch the massive bomb towards the village. Sasuke's eyes went wide. It's over, he thought. He would never get his revenge because he was about to die here. As he saw the destruction, that is when the sight that Naruto had in his hand embedded right at the bomb, stopping it. The two forces seemed to be colliding with an unbelievable amount of power. The sight, the weapon that was crafted from the space itself, Between life and death, it started to infect the tail beast bomb. It was killing it. This wasn't supposed to be possible. Power could not simply be destroyed, and yet, just like that, it was dying. Whatever Naruto evolved into was a spectral of some kind that could perform feats like these that should be impossible. As a tail beast bomb did not explode, instead it simply withered away. The Great One Tail was confused. Unfortunately, though, he didn't have much time to really do anything about it. A massive spike made from pure darkness, just like the shadows, ripped through the thing like a massive bomb. A gaping hole was left in its stomach. The first thing it thought was to regenerate, but surprisingly it could not. The hole was expanding. The beast chakra was deteriorating, breaking down. It tried its best to stop the process, but it seems like it was just getting worse and worse and worse. It was dying. As Naruto appeared on the thing's face, how? The speed that he used seemed to be unable to be tracked. He stood right on the thing as he placed both of his hands on its head and opened his maw. The tail beast started to crush and collapse in on itself, breaking down piece by piece until all that remained was a chakra. Naruto opened his mouth and swallowed it, along with the essence of the great beast. Gaara fell, collapsing on a few trees, breaking a few bones as he collapsed down. Removing a tail beast from someone should kill them, but somehow Gaara was still amongst the land of the living, as this process was different than how it would have normally been done. Despite the fact that the one-tailed chakra had stimulated itself through Gaara's body over the years, and the effect should have killed him, yet he was still breathing. How that was possible was something that was unknown for now. With all of the threats dealt with the real Naruto, Naruto was in a space that could not be called a space. At the same time, it could not be defined as a location. His mind was borderline breaking. The problem was, this evolution was different than the others, as Naruto evolved into something that he could not control. This thirst for souls. It thirst to devour more souls, and currently, there were so many within the village. The only reason why they were still breathing was because Naruto Will was struggling, barely clinging on. For the best part, he allowed himself to feast on the enemy and not feast on Konoha ninjas. But now the enemy was gone. That was the main reason why he absorbed the one-tails. Eating that much gave him just a few seconds. But with his newfound speed, Naruto reached Anko in time. As he leaned over her, the hands moving away, as Naruto breathed life back into her. Smoke came from his mouth like a fountain. It encapsulated her body and locked her in a black cocoon. Kakashi, who was nearby, watched as Naruto held his hand out as his sight returned back towards him. He then raised it to cut Kakashi down. The copy ninja could do nothing but lie where he was, with their shadows being wrestling away from them. Their energy was sapped so much that they couldn't really move or do anything. Maybe they could roll over, but that wouldn't do much. Luckily though, golden chains erupted from Naruto's back and wrapped around his own arm, pinning them down to his side. The chains then wrapped around the sight and hold it before it slammed within Naruto's chest, where his heart was supposed to be. However, the other hand that was being held by the golden chains flexed, and the chain shattered like glass. Kakashi tried to say something, but the mere effort of speaking was becoming impossible, given how long they seemed to be separated from their shadows. While the link was not severed, this ritual seemed to take their very essence and power to do anything. As Naruto was struggling, However, in that moment, a cracking sound could be heard. Yes, a cracking sound. Bursting out of the cocoon, Anko Midarashi, taking in deep breaths. As she looked around confused, I'm alive? She said, remembering being hit from behind and nothing. She looked as she saw the person. Despite him look nothing like himself, she could tell who it was. Naruto? She said, stepping towards him. The hand shattered the rest of the chain and moved towards her. It gripped her by the throat and raised her before opening his maw. You don't want to do this, she said, struggling to speak. I know you would never go this far. Stop, she begged him. As Naruto looked at her, his empty eye sockets. I believe in you, she said. Her words causing the real Naruto to scream violently. Standing to the side, observing all of this was death itself, not making a move or a sound, unable to be seen by the others. Naruto released Anko before. He gripped his own clothing and started to rip it off. Piece by piece, the more he ripped, the more his skin started to return. As he released a violent, shuddering scream that shook Konoha. The mere power behind his voice rumbled the entire goddamn village. Windows started to break. Stones started to collapse. The process seemed to be horrendous. In the sky, Zoldyck watched as he simply stood there and observed what was taking place. As Naruto collapsed down to the ground, his face started to heal. However, it was not the same. Nothing about him was the same, as Naruto had just evolved into something that was beyond this world. Luckily, though, he passed out. The moment he did, everyone's shadow returned back to them. The stretching process over. Everyone took a deep breath as they could finally talk once again. Hiruzen Sarutobi immediately got to his feet, so did Jiraiya. Everyone heavily confused. The siblings grabbed Gaara as they fled. Now beyond the threat, as they too thought they were going to die when the Tail Beast bomb was fired. Sasuke, no longer burdened by the curse mark, got to his feet confused, having no clue or understanding what in the world just took place. When Naruto woke up, he found himself shackled, unable to see a damn thing as his eyes slowly adjusted. He heard the movement of the shackles as his eyes fully adjusted to the room. There was no window, no door. What the hell? There was nothing. How was he breathing was beyond him. As there was no exit, how was this room getting fresh air? This had to be some kind of fuinjutsu, some seal or something. He pulled himself up trying to recall what the last thing was on his mind. And then he remembered Anko. But he saved her. He saved everyone. He heard her words, and he fought through it. Naruto immediately started to move, but he felt so tired. He realized that he wasn't wearing a shirt, as there were strange cuffs. These weren't normal chains cuffs. There were seals imbued in the chains. A powerful seal on his chest and one on his back as well. He felt so tired. However, he forcefully got to his feet. Surprisingly. Hello? Is anyone there? Hello, he shouted. Naruto shouted until his voice was hoarse, before he collapsed back down, feeling so exhausted, so tired, as no one was coming. He lied there for what seemed to be around 3 hours. That is when he saw something. A strange fuinjutsu marker appear on the wall. The wall then shifted and turned to reveal a door. It opened up as someone stepped inside. Naruto smiled when he saw that it was a Hokage, but the Hokage did not return the gesture. He looked serious. Extremely so. causing Naruto to worry and wonder what the hell was going on. "Why am I here?" said Naruto. "What's going on?" Hiruzen stepped inside. As he didn't say a word, he simply looked at Naruto. "Old man, talk to me, what's wrong?" Naruto said. Hiruzen sighed. "You have no recollection of what took place, do you?" he said. I saved everyone." "In a sense, yes, but in a sense you also caused a lot of death." What do you mean?" said Naruto. Hiruzen looked towards Naruto, feeling bad. "All the people within the stands, those that were rendered unconscious by the genjutsu, they're all dead." Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. The thing was, the shinobis were able to withstand their shadows being stretched. Shadows were not the real metaphor. When Naruto transformed into that embodiment of death, their shadow was connected to their soul. Those people that were unconscious was already mentally weak from the genjutsu. Having their soul be stretched like that for so long, not to mention when Naruto used it to open up that abyss of darkness. They didn't wake back up. The shinobis were fine though, some passing out for a few hours and waking up terrified, screams of nightmare, but every single participant that came to watch the exam was dead. There was a lot of important people there, their guards, their family. They were all dead. Only those that were capable were able to withstand it, and those that were rushed away before the event took place. However, the number was still great, as they were trying to get some of the important people to the sanctuary. Well, Naruto started to lose his composure. Luckily, the daimyo was one of the first people to be evacuated along with some of the civilians nearby. Luckily, Sakura's mother was one of them and her father as well. Otherwise, she would have been in a huge depression at the moment. The Genins had saw to it that their parents were safe before moving to evacuate the others. That was the only reason why they were still breathing right now. For those parents who could not break out of the genjutsu. As for the others though, many important people that were even important to the daimyo was no longer with them. Seeing it fit for the daimyo to leave before they made their move, trusted guards who have served him for many years. So many bodies, so many civilians. Naruto was speechless. All the souls that he absorbed were those of the enemies. The other ones simply passed on. As Naruto did not talk, he did not move, he just sat there. He tried to help, but he ended up causing much more damage. "I'm afraid it's not over," Hiruzen said. "Given your actions, there are two talks being thrown around. Your execution or your banishment from the village." Naruto's eyes widened as he looked up towards the man. Time skip. Anko Midarashi was sitting in a cell as well. She went crazy when she heard what they were talking about, when they refused to let her see Naruto. She cursed at them. She even went as far as to try to attack upper officials to get out of her way as the council was making their judgment. The daimyo also wanted Naruto removed as well. It was either the execution or the banishment from the land of fire. Anko cursed at the man. Naruto saved their life, protecting them. He saved all of them. She heard everything from Kakashi, and yet they had the gall to say that. However, they were saying that Konoha forces would have been strong enough to repel the attack if they had the chance. But he did not give them the chance by using whatever he did on them. And they had no idea when he would lose control again. Many started to bring up the Nine Tails, so much so that the news got to leak to everyone. Yes, something that Hiruzen tried to stop from the beginning, but now those that were remaining, those that lost their loved ones during the Chunin exams, their hatred for Naruto had intensified times 10, as there was a literal mob calling for his execution. Over the years, Hiruzen had lost a lot of his power. Yes. And the problem was Hiruzen started to speak on the behalf of Naruto, and doing so, the daimyo who just lost important people to him was being whispered to by someone in the shadows. Danzo Shimura. Danzo was the one that allowed Hiruzen to lose so much power. Yes, he was. It started with Danzo leaking. Yes, it started with him leaking Naruto status to the public, telling them that Naruto was the Jinchuriki. That started it all. It forced Hiruzen to defend the pariah, because the people started to see him as a monster, weakening Hiruzen's political power. Then, it gave additional power to the civilian council, which immediately began to abuse and use their powers in ways that was breaking Hiruzen's reputation even more. Just as the shinobis got sick of the civilian council, the attack happened with the Uchiha massacre, distracting everyone. Meanwhile, the civilian council scaled down. They went off the radar, using paperwork to bury Hiruzen, knowing that they would have more siege and control. Danzo was whispering all of this, his plan from day one, as Hiruzen struggled to finish all the paperwork, falling behind in his shinobi training, and losing majority of the political struggle. With the invasion now, Danzo capitalized on that, with Hiruzen busy defending the one that caused the death of hundreds of their people. People start to turn their sight away from the man, believing that he was much too old, sympathizing with something that he shouldn't be sympathizing with. And word was being said about selecting a new Hokage for the village. Hiruzen knew that the village would be worse off if Danzo was selected. As powerful as Hiruzen was, with all that he's lost over the years, and if the daimyo back this situation, Hiruzen, his position would be taken away. After all, Konoha could not risk not having the backing of the daimyo in the Land of Fire, so Hiruzen would be removed. He had no choice but to pick one or many, and he had to pick the many. He had to pick the village over Naruto. He had to. He knew that Naruto tried his best. He knew that Naruto tried to keep everyone safe, protected. However, the people fear what he was now more than before, and they were calling for his execution or his banishment from the village. Another problem arose when Naruto was being situated in here. They checked him and they couldn't find the seal for the Nine Tails. A thorough check was done. Despite not wanting to, Jiraiya had to do as he was told. Jiraiya struggled to find the source of the seal, anything, but it wasn't there. And Danzo was there to witness this. No longer was the child important as a political hold on their enemies by using the Nine Tails as a threat, because somehow the boy did not possess it anymore. Danzo started to push it even further, saying that he would lose control again, and this time it would be much worse. People started to gather and people started to even shout at the tower in rage. They were not relaxing, using their grief for one thing: anger. Danzo had pushed the grief into nothing but absolute rage, and everyone was partaking in that. All that lost, even those that had friends that lost. It was a big problem as Naruto sat in his cell. Deep within the confines of the Anvu base, he could hear them all. Yes, he could hear them. He had no idea how he could, but he could. His hearing had evolved to beyond superhuman. He could hear them all. He could hear their words, calling him a demon, a monster, the devil, an abomination. They cursed his very name. He could hear their cries. He could almost taste their tears. Each of their words chipped away a bit more of his soul piece by piece. As Naruto lay there completely miserable, he could also hear Anko. She was talking to herself. He knew what happened, Hiruzen told him. The old man told him that he would try his best, but Naruto could see just how much Hiruzen was struggling, knowing that there was nothing he could do. Naruto lay there tired, exhausted. The seals were really affecting him. However, there was something else that he felt. Something else that he could do. He supposed it was for the best. He can't die, because if he did, who would stop the Asusuki invasion? Naruto started to cry. Yes, he started to cry as much. As much as they hate him now, there were still people in this village that he cared about. But they too could not do anything, otherwise they would be seen as traitors. The old man's position will be taken away. Tears came to Naruto's eyes as he felt so miserable. And he couldn't feel him anymore. The Ninetales, despite not being friends, he was the only thing that kept his mind going when he found out that he wasn't a human. Something happened. The Ninetales was no longer with him. He could feel his power, but his sentience, his mind, was gone. It was no longer there. As Naruto started to cry, he curled upon himself. It wasn't often that he felt afraid and so alone, but now, it felt so overwhelming. He felt so miserable, like there was absolutely nothing that he could do in this moment. As he simply lay there in misery, he could hear Anko cursing at them to let her out. They simply threw her in one of the cells, considering that she knew where the Anvu base were. The amount of things that she said she was going to do to them if they didn't let her out. It actually brought a smile to his face. "I'm sorry, Anko," he said. "I draw you into this." "Naruto?" Naruto blinked in confusion. Is that you? Where are you?" "Wait, you can hear me?" Naruto said, confused. "Yeah. Where the hell are you?" she said. "And why? Wait, I'm not talking. How are you talking to me through my mind?" Naruto blinked as he realized that his mind had evolved, allowing him to speak with Anko despite using no words and the distance between them. He was shocked. However, it was so happy to hear her voice. "I thought I lost you and I know," she said. "They told me everything, but you didn't mean to do any of that. You would never intentionally harm these people. I know you." "I didn't," said Naruto, "but there's nothing I can do. The old man title is gonna get taken away because he's trying to find a way to save me. And you, they're gonna see you as a person that helped the monster." Naruto said, feeling bad. "And they're going to kill me," he said. "I won't allow them to do that. You saved me. You brought me back from death itself. I don't even know how that is even possible, but you did it. And you didn't mean to hurt anyone, not to mention you saved all of their life. If anything, they should be thanking you. And they have the gall to say they want to kill or banish you. I refuse to let that happen. I will not let that happen," she said. "Stop," said Naruto. "You're just hurting yourself. I'll find a way out of here if it's the last thing I do. I won't allow them to hurt you, even if that means leaving this village permanently." You really mean that?" You would give everything up? Of course I would. They never treated me as an equal in the beginning. While I'll miss Kurnai and Hana, and you, Jail, I won't allow you to be on your own, she said. You sacrificed your own innocence for me because if I didn't die, none of this would have happened. So I won't allow you to go through this alone. So whatever it takes, she said. It wasn't just about paying back her debt that she owed him. Anko genuinely cared for Naruto, willing to put her life on the line, not hesitated to even threaten people like the daimyo and all those important factions, willing to fight and cut down anyone in her path. Risking her life, she did not care, she would save him no matter what. As Naruto could feel her emotions from her thoughts alone. I can get out of here. Anko paused. What do you say? I can get out of here, said Naruto. These seals and chains. I'm evolving beyond them. I can feel my body starting to evolve beyond their bindings. They're strong, but my body is constantly evolving and leveling up, passing the amount of strength and power it would take to hold me. And I can get the both of us out of here. But if we leave this village, we can't return, Naruto said. I can hear their thoughts. I thought I was hearing their voices, but it's their thoughts, their anger, their rage. I can hear them all. My need to understand just how they're feeling, I can feel their emotions. And I can feel those that care about us as well, who want us to live through this. But they too know deep down that I will not live through this. And they're afraid that you're going to follow me down as well. Something I will never allow to happen, Naruto said. Do it, she said. What? Do it. Get us out of here. Let's leave the village. But Anko, no buts. There's no way that they're just going to banish you. They're angry. And they're going to use the pain that they felt over the past couple of years and now this new pain to release it all. They're going to release it all on you. They're going to want a public execution of the monster that took everything away from them once again. That is how they're feeling right now. And they're going to use that pain to take you out. So get us out of here and let's leave. But what about you, said Naruto? And everything that you've built here, everything that you have here. What do I really have, she said. Ever since Orochimaru branded me with that stupid mark, I've been a slave to his whims and words. That is how they saw it. But ever since you brought me back, I'm free. I don't just owe my life to you, I owe my freedom to you. What? The mark, it's gone. I don't know what you did, but I'm free, she said. I was so happy when I found out, but the one person I wanted to be happy with wasn't here for me to be happy with. And now, there's a whole big world out there. It doesn't matter what it takes or what we will have to go through. I'll be by your side no matter what. I won't allow them to harm you. Naruto had tears in his eyes. He couldn't remember the last time he cried this much, but for her to be saying all of this, to be giving up everything just to be with him, it stirred emotions deep within his heart. Thank you, said Naruto, as he got to his feet. As he heard her words of encouragement, Naruto looked at the chain as he looked down. His body adapted as the sealing art started to malfunction. The moment it did, alarms started to be sent off. That something was going on. Naruto grabbed the chain with his hand and broke them, breaking through them with ease, surprised by his strength. Having not seen his reflection yet, he had no idea just how much he had changed because of his transformation. As Naruto stepped to the door, I'm sorry, Ninetales, he said. The next moment, red chakra enveloped Naruto as he pulled his fist back and launched it, breaking the door off the hinges as it slammed into the wall. His power was significantly magnified by the power of the Ninetales. As Naruto turned and ran down the halls Two Anvus descended upon him, but chains that took the place of tails wrapped around them. It slammed them into the wall, knocking them out. As Naruto reached Anko's door, the chains, 9 of them, emerged from his lower half and slammed into it. As Naruto gripped it and ripped it out, he had access to the power of the fox. But the fox was not with him. He had no idea what happened when. He regressed to that state, but that wasn't on his mind right now. As Naruto rushed towards her, he broke her chains immediately when he realized something. He picked her up in his arms. Naruto was confused how he was holding Anko so easily. Why did he seem bigger? Naruto thought. However, there was no time for that. Hold on tight, said Naruto. Anko gripped onto him, as there were seals also placed on her as well, to restrain her. She held on to him as Naruto. Chakra enveloped the both of them. She felt a weird sensation overtake her, but it wasn't bad. Naruto's fist blew the wall to pieces, breaking through. Naruto kept on breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking until they reached a violent surge as he exploded out of the underneath, finally reaching the surface. Naruto could sense each and every Anvu race into this area, and the ones that were down there racing to him. He heard a sound as he looked up and saw a bird. As he took a breath, Anko looked up towards him. How the hell are we gonna get out of here, she said. Do you trust me, said Naruto. Of course I do. So just hold on tight, said Naruto to her, as he bent his legs. The Anvus were shocked as they emerged from the broken, gouging hole that Naruto had left. Meanwhile, all of that was going on. Zoldyck was a witness to all of this. Anko had no idea who took her life, neither did Naruto. So Zoldyck was in the clear. He held his hand out as the eye in his palm opened up to reveal what seemed to be space. Zoldyck looked through as he saw someone, a man standing on a tree, simply observing down below. Immediately he closed his palm. He looked angry as he made his way off, following behind Naruto and Anko as the entire village was coming after them to stop them. But guys, be and subscribe right here for once the next part, and do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.